I grew up in a neighborhood with lots of kids, big ones, little ones, and many in between. I just loved to recall those little characters who lived on my street and the things they did, naughty things, crazy things, even dangerous things. You know, there's this one kid named Eric, and he just loved watching those daredevil stunts on TV, you know, where guys on motorcycles make big jumps over a bunch of lined up cars and make a spectacular landing at the other end. Well, one day he got the bright idea he's going to take his bicycle up on top of the tool shed in his backyard and make a jump over a bunch of lined up garbage cans and then make a spectacular landing on his driveway. Now, he advertised up and down the street, got all the neighbor kids to come out and help him by watching him make his big jump, and he just knew he could do it. And he also knew it'd make him the best daredevil on the street. Well, he got those other boys to help him hoist his bicycle up on that tool shed, and he backed up as far as he could, give himself a good running start, and then he was ready. He revved his engine like he's riding a real motorcycle. Run, run, run. Then he launched himself off that tool shed, went sailing over those garbage cans. When his bicycle tires hit that driveway, he vaulted right over those handlebars and did a face plant in the cement. Broke his nose and both his arms. The other kids were impressed, but not by what a great daredevil he was, but by how much he bled there on the driveway before his mother came and picked him up and took him to the hospital. Wasn't a very smart thing to do. You know, that incident pretty much cured him of being a daredevil. Then there's this girl on my street who was a liar. Her name was Kendra. She told me there were these big giant cats that came through people's neighborhoods at night. And they were so big, they could step right over people's houses in one big bound. She said I better watch out that one of them big cats didn't get me. Well, I had this cat named Tiger, and he disappeared for a few days. And one night I was lying there in my bed in the dark trying to go to sleep when all of a sudden I heard this really strange cat cry. I was so scared I couldn't move. I was laying there sweating in fear under the bed covers. I was so scared one of them giant cats was standing over my house, just waiting to come around to my bedroom window and reach through and grab me. Pretty soon I heard my mother go to the back door, and there she found our cat, Tiger. He's a mess. Something terrible had happened to him, but he'd finally come home. Was I ever relieved there wasn't one of them giant cats standing over my house just waiting to get me? Later, I figured out that girl had lied to me, and there wasn't any such thing as giant cats that stepped over people's houses and grabbed little kids as they lay in their beds. Then there's this man on our street named Bob, old bachelor Bob. Now, he is very particular. He kept his house and yard perfect. Now, he had a really nice RV parked beside his house. Now, I don't know why it is, but little kids just have this propensity for using the great outdoors as a toilet. They just love having the freedom to go outside, especially boys. Now, the big thrill for several of the littlest kids was to sneak behind Bob's RV and poop and tinkle without getting caught. Pretty soon, Bob began to notice a pretty bad smell coming from behind his RV, and he was mad. He went to several parents and threatened them. Those little kids quit going in Bob's yard. Then one Halloween, the other kids and I decided to have a haunted house in my garage. We had so much fun making dead bodies out of old clothes that we'd stuffed and hanging them from the rafters, and hanging sheets to make hallways for the littler kids to go through as they encountered all the scary things we'd created in our haunted house. Now, one of the boys had a sister who's about 12 years older than we were, and she was a real hippie. She had long black hair, and she's kind of crazy. I think she's probably a drug addict. But anyway, she ratted her hair all out, and she put on gypsy-like clothes, and she carried a bowl of cooked spaghetti. It looked like worms. She said she's going to make the little kids touch it and maybe even eat it. She made the best witch we'd ever seen. Well, we had her in the center of our haunted house, and we had all the lights out except for a few kids who had flashlights. They were shining on that wicked witch. and she was cackling and screaming in the middle of that haunted house. We had our little red wagon full of little kids. We were steering through the sheeted hallways toward the Wicked Witch. Those little kids were so scared out of their minds. Listen to that Wicked Witch cackle and scream. They were crying and screaming way louder than she was before they ever reached her. And the little kids who were standing outside waiting for their turns, well, they were crying and screaming before they ever got inside. I suspect they thought that those who had gone before them were being killed from the sounds of it. They weren't about to step inside our haunted house. So we had to call off the haunted house due to the hysterical state of our clientele. Then something really terrible happened on my street, truly terrible, and I felt really responsible for it. There's this cute little girl who lived next door, little Cindy. Bouncy little girl with a little blonde ponytail. Well, one day I was riding this bicycle all around, and she said she wanted to ride on the back of that bicycle. I said, sure. So she hopped on the back of the bicycle. We were riding along. She's swinging her little bare feet back and forth, when all of a sudden she let out the most awful scream I've ever heard. I stopped the bicycle, and she plopped off on the ground and lay there bleeding heavily from her foot. A couple of us grabbed her and rushed her to her parents. They took her to the hospital. I thought her parents were going to be really mad at me, think that I had hurt her. But to my surprise, they were very understanding. As it turned out, she'd stuck her big toe right into the spokes of that bicycle wheel. And the corner of that big toe had been chopped right off. The doctor sewed up her toe and said, the corner of that big toe must be laying out there on the street or in somebody's yard. All the neighbor kids went looking for that piece of toe, but nobody ever found it. As you can see, I still feel pretty bad about that little girl's toe. Did you ever have some daredevil kid living on your street? Or did some kid ever tell you a lie that really scared you? Sounds like the kids who lived on your street were pretty much like the kids who lived on my street. Some kids just do the craziest things.